Hey, True Believers. Happy Friday to everybody. Wanted to go over something really special today. We are going over Marvel graphic novel number 4, The New Mutants. This is the first appearance of the New Mutants, not the number 1 that came out with the regular periodicals. And from what I understand from back in the day is this was supposed to be New Mutants number 1. However, there's delays in the Marvel graphic novels run, and so Jim Shooter decided to take Claremont's story and lump it into the Marvel graphic novel, which became issue number 4, and that's how we got this. And then, the regular series proceeded afterwards. Now, you think about, okay, that's the office politics, whatever. I think it's great because this is like an extra, large size. So for those of you that have never seen the Marvel graphic novels, you compare it against a regular comic book. And I just love that extra sizeness to it. It's just really nice. And you can see how fat that thing is. So yeah, it's a graphic novel. So I just wanted to kind of give a comparison there, which, you saw a blink there. Maybe we'll be going over that in the near future. Who knows? Anyway, so yeah, Chris Claremont and Bob McLeod. And this is the birth of some of our favorite mutants. And let's kind of go over the, if I can get the book open, which is one thing about these fatter books, is they don't like to flop open like regular floppies. You have to fight it like a WWF wrestler. So yeah, this is Chris Claremont, Bob McLeod, lettered by Tom Orzechowski, colored by Glynis Wein, edited by Louise Jones, who I believe is now Louise Simonson, and then editor-in-chief Jim Shooter. And the print date on this was November 1982. And get the page turned as everyone waits in anticipation for me. So right off the bat, we see Renewal. And the reason we kind of go over the New Mutants is at this time the X-Men were fighting the Brood and they were taken to space. So Xavier believes all of his students to be dead. So just keep that in mind as we go. And right here, this is Moira McTaggart. And she's terrified because there's a wolf, but she's saying, wait a minute, how could there be a wolf? They're extinct in these parts. I think this is supposed to be Scotland, even though it's Muir Island. And she comes to find out, and this is one thing I love about the McLeod and the art team here is see how they start with how Rahne here, we get kind of this establishing shot, and then we kind of back up into more of a wide shot, and we see how Rahne was jumping, and then we kind of get the little bit of blue, and then a tumble. And Moira, being a geneticist and knowing Charles, she comes to find out that this is a mutant. And she actually knows this is a Rahne Sinclair. She's like, good Lord, I know her too. I delivered her years ago. It's Rahne Sinclair. So right there off the bat, we realize where we are. We're established with a character that we already know and how their ties to this new character is. So that's great work right there. And then Rahne's origin, which I never knew, is kind of like Kurt's, Nightcrawler's. Is Moira wants to save the girl, and these guys come upon her land, which is Kinross land, and they're like, we don't want to hurt you, Moira, we just want the demon, because again, mutants are the symbolic version of everything bad in people's eyes, which is, we know, is not true. But what's that word I'm looking for? Xenophobia? No, that might be wrong. But you know what I mean. Anyway. They said, mock me at your peril, Moira McTaggart, daughter of Lord Kinross. Though he may be, our intent is to save the child's soul, to drive the demons from her. Because with Rahne, I don't know if she ever found out who her true parents were, but she was given up to one of the churches, and so she was a ward of the state, and so that's why a lot of her beliefs are deep-seated in the Catholic religion. And we'll get into that here in a minute. But these men flee because they know Moira's family history has power. So she's able to save Rahne from this mob, just how Xavier saved Kurt from the mob in Germany. And then we jump over, and I like how Claremont just kind of quickly introduces each character, giving them just a couple of pages. So, we go from Scotland to Rio de Janeiro, where we're introduced to Roberto Da Costa, who we all know as Sunspot. And so we get to see that he's a soccer player. We see his father and his girlfriend. And what I like is while we are sitting here getting introduced to these characters, Claremont, along with the, why can I not think today? Because I haven't had enough coffee. Along with the analogy of mutants being everything that's like oppressed, he also shows that across the globe, from Scotland to Southern America, you know, he touches on it because there's a guy here who actually calls Roberto a half-breed. And we'll get more into it here in a minute when we're introduced to Dani. But what I like, and I think this is how Claremont always was able to touch on these racial issues without it feeling too heavy-handed or on the nose, is he jumps across the globe and says, yes, it's not just happening in the States, it's happening here, it's happening there. And it's just like a quick thing, because then some people are like, yeah, it's not just happening here, you know. So I like that. It's not preachy, it's not heavy-handed. It just shows that this stuff can happen and how you can rise up above it. So that's good stuff there. Now, as you can see, there's a fight that breaks out on the field between these two boys. And you can, just the way that this character called Da Costa a half-breed, you can tell that there's bad blood between them. And this is the first time where he develops his Sunspot powers. And so everyone is terrified, and he doesn't know what to do, just like any mutant who first goes through puberty. And I don't want to spoil that there. However, there's these beats in between each character where we see this hand monitoring all these new mutants. He's like, more mutants are appearing every day in more parts of the world. But no matter. Each time one appears, I will be there to destroy them. So we get these beats where it's like character, this. So it's starting to build the tension. Because after that, we're throwing them back into, where is it, Kentucky? I believe it is. And this is, right here, yeah. Cameron County, Kentucky. And what I like here is it says, these deep mines sunk straight down in the earth or into sideways into the guts of these ancient mountains. It's a hard land, a hard way of life, and it nurtures an equally tough breed of men who start young and grow up fast. So again, Sam Guthrie, Cannonball, and just right there, okay, we see what he does, and then we talk about why he's doing this. His father died of the black lung, which is something that miners are not accustomed to, susceptible to. And so he's talking to one of his father's friends and talking about he took this job because he has to make way for his four other siblings, which we now know as one of them was Paige, and then I just forgot her name was Arrow, the one that died in the last X-Men book we went over. I can't remember her name. But anyway, just quick and to the point, which is great stuff. And then of course the manifestation of his power and how he was able to use it, which make sure to check out the book Why. But again, here we are, different part of the globe. And he's saying this person could be, he could serve his purpose. And he can follow, if not, he can follow young Da Costa into the grave. And then from there, we're taken to the mountains of Colorado, where we are introduced to Dani Moonstar. Now here's their Black Eagle, which is her grandfather. And what I like is, you look well, child, I'm glad. Come walk with me, we must talk. He goes, the time has come for you to leave these mountains. And she's kind of in isolation, because with Dani, at this point, I can't remember what I think she was called Psyche, but she initially changes, I believe her code name was Mirage. But she takes people's deepest fears and projects them. So she was basically scared out of her tribe, and so she's living out in the wilderness. And this is where she's saying, you need to go live with Charles Xavier. She goes, I've summoned a man, a teacher. You will go with him to learn how best to use your gifts, given to you by the Great Spirit, your powers of the mind. He's like, why can't you teach me? I'm an old man, and my knowledge and skills are nothing compared to his. His name is Charles Xavier. Now, remember how I told you how Claremont does not get heavy-handed? Check this out. This is a great way that he kind of shows another racial tension without it getting heavy-handed. She goes, a white? You would send me to an Anglo? No, I won't do it. I won't go. So you can, again, kind of see, just from reading in history and whatnot, you can understand the bitterness from Dani. And in just that one panel, without, 6 or 7 pages of, 9-inch dialogue panels of preachiness. This just quick and to the point, and you understand. And how she, again, because she got mad, lashes out with her psyche ability, and she's able to see her grandfather's great fear, which is another foreshadowing, which we do not want to spoil, but just kind of wanted to touch on that, and why she eventually does go with Xavier. And with all that said, we jump to Westchester County. And here we can already see that some time has passed because Moira's here. She's with Rahne, and you come to find out that she has taken Rahne as her ward. And then we are introduced to Xi'an, who is Karma, right? Yeah, Karma. So you see that he's kind of experimenting just to kind of run some tests on her. What are the links of her power? And she's talking about how she's able to possess people. And so, what's her name? Moira says, why don't you test it on me? And so she tries to show that, is this satisfactory, Professor? And Rahne just right off the bat, because this is her kind of her faux mother, she's ready to attack. And Professor's like, Rahne, stop this. And then, Moira doesn't remember anything that happened of this. And all the while, I love the paneling by McLeod. Just each character, like the facial reaction. I mean, look at this. This is classic Karma power, the way that they always did this. And just the reactions on the face are great work by McLeod. Just great artwork overall. Especially, how you see Karma here, how she kind of has this hesitance because she doesn't want to do this. Now, she explains to Xavier why she does what she does and how her father was a colonel in the Vietnamese army and how they were able to come to the States, how she took a job and restore some semblance of order to her her remaining family's life, how her brother has the same power as her, but unlike her brother, she loathes taking people's lives over like that. As she says, my brother just looks at people as puppets. But Xavier knows that she's not saying the whole story, which we do eventually find out, not in this book. But if you guys enjoyed this review and want me to go over New Mutants #1, then we'll go over that, because that's where her dark secret is revealed. Now, check this out. Xavier says, but the dream wasn't founded. You didn't begin your life... Oh, this is Moira, I'm sorry. Merely to combat evil mutants. The dream, Charlie, was to help mutants learn to live with their powers, and to help society learn to accept them. Xi'an and Rahne need guidance only you can provide. Can you refuse them? I want to. The X-Men were my family. Losing them is unbearable. So at this point is an Uncanny X-Men 161 where the Brood took the X-Men, so he thinks them dead, but they're not. We know this now. So he tells Moira, he goes, you're a tough woman. And he goes, all right, ladies, I'll see what I can do. And so he takes them on as students. Not to train the new X-Men, but just as students. Now, they come to find that there are other mutants in, what's that word I'm looking for? Rio de Janeiro and Kentucky. And so with all that said, and then, of course, the one with Dani in Colorado. But what happens here is they see this Vietnam reenaction, and Xavier thinks it's just like some sort of mirage. But it comes out to be very real. And the reason being is because these attackers, as we saw that image earlier, are going after Dani, and her powers are out of control. And she doesn't want to really trust Xavier because she's used to being with her tribe, and she doesn't really trust anyone outside of them, as we saw. And you can see that she's ferocious. She's ready to kill these men, but Xavier's like, stop. And so while that's happening, we jump over to Rio de Janeiro. And just right off the bat, there's no moment to breathe. We got all that with Dani, and now these cops are breaking in and talking about the disappearance of a girl named Juliana, who is the girl that was with Roberto's father, as we saw just a moment ago. And we come to find out she's been kidnapped. So a whole lot of shenanigans happen here. And I don't want to spoil what happens. Read what happens with Moira. Nonetheless, Dani and Karma track down Da Costa using a miniaturized Cerebro. And you come to find out what happens with Juliana. You come to find out who the kidnappers are, which is, if you look at the uniforms, they should be somewhat apparent to longtime readers. And you can see here, what I like is, how these new mutants, they're not super versed in their powers. As you can see, Dani's running for her life. Her Mirage powers are just going all over the place. We've seen how Xi'an's powers work. We've seen how Rahne's work. And of course, Sunspot, how he's able to, pick up certain density weight, like, because he gets the power of the sun on him and whatnot. If I'm explaining that wrong, feel free to make fun of me down in the comments below. But nonetheless, he gets strained and he's tired because this is new to him. He doesn't know what to do. Now, again, I love this little throwback to what happened during the Dark Phoenix saga. So if you guys know what I'm talking about here, it's great stuff, and why a lot of these guys are the way they are. Again, I don't want to ruin it. Now, there is one little spoiler here. You come to find out that in this passage of time, look at this person with the blonde hair. Look at the uniform he's wearing, and why nobody really wants to trust him. So Xavier is taken by this person that I've been kind of avoiding spoiling the story of for. And the New Mutants, even though they're not versed in their powers, have to break in to save Xavier. And look at this paneling. This is awesome. We see where Rahne is able to use her different forms of her wolf powers, where she could be a wolf, half human wolf, and whatnot. And just love the way it's boom, 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 and how each part of her powers interact with the guard dogs, which allows her to go by undetected. That is some good stuff. And again, this kind of shows how Sam, even though he's working for this person, he's inexperienced and is not really able to control his cannibal powers, other than the fact that he knows he's invulnerable. Now, these pages here are all spoilers. I do not want to give away what happens in this complex because a lot is said and a lot is revealed. However, at the end, you can see that this person was Sam Guthrie, and the New Mutants don't want anything to do with him. And you're just kind of like, wait a minute, he was one of the founding members, and he was a co-member along with Dani. Well, that is the case. So we come back a few weeks later, and we can see that Xavier's musing about his students, how it hurts that he thinks all of his former students are dead, and why everyone kind of agrees to what they're doing. Xi'an was reluctant because she said she had a job where she could take care of her family. Xavier said, come work for me, be my student, and everything will be taken care of. Da Costa, same thing, he doesn't understand his power. Dani is reluctant, but she does it to avenge her grandfather and out of memory for him. Rahne is kind of the more hopeful one of the group. And then what I like here comes Sam. And there's a moment of, distrust. Now, if you want to see how they come about and become a team, I would highly, highly recommend, if you can, get a copy of the original, like I was able to finally get it at my local comic shop, which, thank you guys, appreciate you. Or a reprint, because they always have those giant collected trades, and I believe this is part of it. Now, I know I probably could not explain it the best that this story was, but this was a beautiful read, guys. And if I remember correctly, if I'm wrong, let me know down in the comments, but I think Claremont was reluctant to make a spin-off book. And so, you know, when they kind of mandated it, he made something that he enjoyed. And that's how he was able to create characters that he just talks about. So now within the X-Men story, you got the original 5, that was Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and then he came in and brought in Storm, Nightcrawler, Colossus, Kitty, Dazzler. Lynn Wein brought in Wolverine. And then we got a whole fresh original thing created by Chris Claremont and Bob McLeod. So it really helps with the mythology now that we look back on it, because I wasn't keen on the New Mutants when I first read them, but as I got older, I understood, and it's just great reading, guys. So if you've enjoyed this book, please support your local comic shop and see if there's a copy you can pick up or a collected trade, as I just said. If you've enjoyed this review, we definitely appreciate it if you take a minute to hit like, share, and subscribe. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that fancy little mutant bell next to subscribe, that way as we continue to upload content, you guys can come to the channel and we can have a dialogue down in the comments below, because we love to hear your feedback and just chat with y'all, or on our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description below. So with all that said, I hope y'all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy weekend, true believers.